Jack. Our upcoming colloquies are monthly. Let's see, April is going to be Talon Silverhorn, who will be talking about the new state park in Old Town and the life of Tecumseh. And in May, we will have the director of the Senior Center, Carolyn Mullen, who will talk a bit about the center and plans to move to the new land on Antioch College. So thanks for coming. And let's see, Jack Bernstein is president. We're very excited to have him because he's talking about the eclipse, which we're also kind of excited about. He's president of the Miami Valley.
Vice, never. I'm in the worthless position of vice president.
Oh, you're president. I thought you said you were president.
No.
Okay, vice president of the Miami Valley Astronomical Society. Describes himself as a mostly retired infectious diseases physician, an emeritus professor of medicine at Wright State, and former director of research and infectious diseases at the Dayton VA Hospital. He is an avid traveler who loves to take photos on land, underwater, at sea, and in the sky. So I think you're going to hear about that. Thank you.
Thanks.
You don't ask me because I'm in emeritus also, so
They figured I could say something about this. In any case,
I just looked up for your shirts the length of totality in Yellow Springs.
you have 2 minutes and 8 seconds.
Let's go. So let's just say, don't
Turn around quickly. In any case, this is a picture of a crowd, including my wife, who's in the center, appropriately using her eclipse glasses. This was in Portland, Tennessee, which is north of Nashville, where we went to see the last eclipse, which we were lucky because the skies were like that and those clouds went away. So it was perfect. So we can only pray that it'll be like that here. Now, that actually is me. That's my passport picture from 1971. I was a good-looking guy. And I had hair. And had this nice little mustache. And at that point, I was a junior in college. And I was at Stony Brook in New York. And there was an eclipse coming up the coast of America and going over the Delmarva Peninsula and then heading out to sea. And so we decided to drive down. It was a cold day. Of course, we were in a VW minibus or equivalent, whatever was appropriate back then. And we got down there, camped the night, and we had a beautiful eclipse. And the Dayton Daily actually mentioned it and says here, professional and amateur astronomers use a variety of techniques to view Saturn's 80% solar eclipse in the Dayton sky. Steve Hildebrandt, who's from our Astronomy Society, likes to say that 99.9% is a nice number, but it's essentially zero. So if it's 80%, you miss the total solar eclipse. If the total solar eclipse is complete, it may be 5 seconds or 4 minutes, but it needs to be completely covered for it to be a total solar eclipse. But they're showing all these cool people looking in. This guy, I hope, has a solar filter, otherwise he's blind. This person is looking with I think, a pinhole camera, and I'll show you that later. This guy, hopefully that's effective to block out the sun. Now, this was a track of that eclipse, which is now frighteningly over 50 years ago. Started over Tallahassee area, and that pink line is the central line. Came over Greenville, South Carolina, over North Carolina, and then went over the Delmarva, and then went out. It finally went to Nantucket. And it went just over Nantucket. And this is a quote I found in the archives of the New York Times. Nantucket was the only spot in the Northeast US that landed on a narrow path of the solar eclipse. And here, this is nice prose, here a rare winter day was provided for eclipse watchers near the cloudless skies, let the sun shine brightly, except for the 2 minutes and 6 seconds of totality. Seagulls perched on top of the dockside building sensed that all was not normal. They began to screech and flutter aimlessly in the air. And so this was a picture by a gentleman who took it. And to get a picture like that, I mean, the sun is black and then it's kind of bright around there, but then the brightness decreases rapidly as you move out. So he did multiple different exposures to get that picture. Now, of course, I was an intrepid budding photographer back in 1970. And so I got out my camera too. And my camera was in a snap. And that's what my pictures of the eclipse. And remember, that was the film days, right? And so I developed the solar and went, oh. Things have gotten better since then. But so don't take your pocket camera out or your iPhone. Now, interestingly, this is from the Lorraine Journal. And I'm not really sure why they say that. I mean, million sea eclipse, next showing, Lorraine, Ohio, of course. Next showing in 2024. And blackout total in some areas. Kind of a strange statement. In any case, it was not anywhere in Ohio. But I found it very interesting over here is Captain Bush died and left, and anyone till Nixon. So it's interesting when you get these old papers, it brings you back to strange old days. But in any case, the next showing was not in 2024, because if we look at all sorts of eclipses, I know that in the about 1994 or 95, I don't remember the exact year, we had an annular eclipse that came almost exactly over Dayton. It was total annularity over Lima, Ohio. And so you get most of the strange things you get except for the corona, and that was here. We recently had another total eclipse, annual eclipse come across from the Oregon area over Texas, and that was just last fall. And then in 2017, we had the eclipse that came over from Oregon, over Kentucky, Tennessee, and then went to sea over South Carolina. So the Lama Sunday Journal is really not looking at a lot of accuracy.
When you're saying annularity.
Oh, I will explain everything to you later.
Okay.
I mean, we can get into the meaning of the word annulus. But in an annual eclipse, and I'll show you, it's essentially, you've got a ring of fire, the ring of fire eclipse. The moon is too small, it can't cover everything. And we'll talk about why that happens. And then you get the brightness around. So you don't look at that with your bare eyes. Otherwise, cataract surgery will not. In 2017, I went with my wife and we went down to Nashville the Nashville area. And this is showing you the three eclipses that I just mentioned. That's the one of 2017. It started essentially in Oregon and then ended up over South Carolina. And we were down here somewhere. And then the annular eclipse, the non-total solar eclipse, we had a ring of fire, started about the same area, came over Texas, and then went out over the Gulf of Mexico. That was last fall. And then this one's going to start over Mazatlan, Western Mexico, come across Texas, and eventually exit the US over Maine, be there. And so this one is over a lot of heavily populated areas. So it's felt for this eclipse, the most number of people are under the eclipse path. And we'll talk about cities around here, but I mean, Indianapolis is under the eclipse path, Dayton is, Sydney, then Cleveland is, Rochester, New York, I mean, and on, all the way up to Canada. And we'll talk about the other problem with going north later, which is called these cloudy things that come from the north, the Canadian stuff, which might interfere. So as I said, my skill level did improve from 1970 to 2017. And these are pictures that I took of the eclipse in Tennessee, Tennessee. And over there you can see a series, and I took pictures of the partial phases, starting when it's not eclipsed at all. And the second picture is a tiny notch, which you really can't tell. Bigger notch all the way to the end, and we'll talk about that. And then you can see the corona. And then these two pictures are showing you the eclipsed sun with the corona coming out. And then over here, I enhanced this so you can see the prominences coming out. Now, in 2017, we were close to what's called solar minimum. Not a lot of activity on the sun. We are now near solar maximum. And so every day I'm getting an alert on my phone that there's been another solar flare, and it's a radio blackout. That means that the sun should be very active, and if we see the eclipse, look for those little red tendrils coming out the side besides the corona. You'll be able to see them. They're not faint. The other problem that we got into in 2017 was the fact that everybody went to the eclipse. And getting down there wasn't too bad. I mean, we wanted to get a place to stay in Nashville. We thought it would be cool, and everything was booked up. We're having the same problem right now, all the way to Texas. You try to get a room, even around here, you try to get a room, they're all booked up. And so we stayed for the weekend in Louisville, had a wonderful weekend in Louisville, and drove down the next day to Portland, which is just across the line over here. And no problems, went into a park, it was fantastic. And then when we left, which was about 3 p.m, we got on the road, and then my car kept saying, rerouting, rerouting, rerouting. This is a Google map showing you all the congested roads after the eclipse. And so what happened was that everybody tried to go home at the same time. It took me, I think, 10 hours to get home from north of Nashville. And we just, at one point, we just stopped and ate dinner and stuff like that. The concern is that it'll be the same, but worse. This time with this eclipse, going all up and down. Now, we are very lucky and blessed that we live under the eclipse. We don't have to go anywhere if it's good weather. And this is in Wyoming, showing you the tie-up of the traffic. But, I lived that back in 17, and many of us live that. So again, if you're planning on going anywhere, take back roads if you have to. But the freeways are not going to be good. You may not know that DeWine passed a executive measure saying that all road work on that day should cease. So the construction on 75 will not be occurring on April. I'm serious, on April 8th. And I think they're going to try to be a little bit more lenient with traffic, but obviously we're telling people to stay away if at all possible. Okay, so, I'll show you a little bit more about this. I think we need to talk about what is an eclipse. Well, an eclipse is easy. An eclipse is when something covers something else. In this case, it's the moon covering the sun. There are other moons that cover other suns, but we're only concerned about ours. And we have a member of the club that went to an eclipse in Kenya. He said, yeah, he was there. It was a 9-second eclipse.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a long way. It was a long way for a 9-second eclipse. But remember that if my head is us and the moon is this big, there's a lot of area around where we are that's eclipsed. Whereas if it's out here and the moon is just the exact size of the area, there's barely anything. And if it's further out, it's an annular eclipse. And I'll show you the pictures of that in a bit. And so the reason that in Englewood, I'm getting 3 minutes and 15 seconds of eclipse, and in Yellow Springs, you're getting 2 minutes and 8 seconds of eclipse, is that the moon is more central to me than it is here. With you guys, the moon is towards the edge of the sun. So there's less time for it to cover the sun. In Sydney, Ohio, the moon passes straight over the central line, and so it covers it for the longest period of time.
Which is how long?
Almost 4 minutes in Ohio. Okay, 2 minutes, 8 seconds here, 3 minutes, 15 in Englewood. We're going to visit friends in Richmond if it's good weather, and it's going to be about 3 minutes and 45 seconds in Richmond, Indiana. It's going in, you saw a picture of it again and again. It's in an angle going up through Ohio. There we go. Okay, eclipses are not that uncommon.
The microphone.
Eclipses are not that uncommon. They can happen a couple of times a year, but they're scattered all over the world. Sometimes they're over Antarctica, sometimes they're over the Arctic, sometimes they're just over the ocean. It's a very short circumscribed period of time. And if we want to wait for the next one in Dayton, it's going to be 375 years. And I know that this is the Yellow Springs Senior Center, but I think that even with advances in longevity, it's going to be a long time. Now, the next USA crossing is going to be in 2045. I will not be 100 then, but I don't know how much I'm going to be running around in 2045, if I am at all. And again, the last annual one here was 30 years ago. So it's very unusual. And for most people, it's a once in a lifetime event. Now, just a small thing. We see lunar eclipses more commonly than solar eclipses, and a lunar eclipse is the exact opposite. With a solar eclipse, the sun is covered by the moon, and you see a small 100-mile wide strip going across the Earth, and that's where the eclipse is. With a lunar eclipse, the Earth usually covers up a lot more, so the moon is blood red for a couple of hours. And there have been, since I've been in Dayton since '85, and I've probably seen 4 to 6 of these and photographed them the whole time, and they're kind of cool. I mean, sometimes they're light orange, and sometimes they're really blood red. It just depends on lots of phenomena. If there's been a volcano erupting, the atmosphere has dust in it, it's going to be darker red and so forth and so on. There's actually going to be what's called a penumbral eclipse of the moon in the, I think, very soon. But we won't even notice it because it's so faint. It's the total lunar eclipses that we even notice. Now, this is a good, this is from a NASA site, and it's talking about why don't we have a solar eclipse every month. This says the same thing as the NASA video, and the moon is tilted 5 degrees. So if the sun is over here, the moon is up at certain times of the year, you won't get an eclipse because the shadows go the wrong way. If the moon is down, same thing, too low. It's when it crosses a node right here, where it crosses the ecliptic or the equator, when the sun's rays come straight in, then it can cause an eclipse. Now, there's something called the Saros cycle. The Saros cycle is a periodicity of eclipses, and this is, I'm not going to go into this in any detail because I don't even understand it completely, but there are various different cycles, new moon to new moon, perigee to perigee, meaning how far it is from the Earth, and also node to node when it touches that spot where it crosses the ecliptic. And smart Greek astrologers and astronomers figured out what this meant, and they can predict eclipses up thousands of years. And so this is just showing you Saros cycle 136 from 1901 to 2045, and showing you it looks just the same. It's just moving upwards with time. And so we've been able to predict eclipses going out for hundreds of years. And so that's, to some extent, why we know exactly where this is going to occur, when it's going to occur, down to the second.
Can you make my phone work?
Oh, probably. Okay, this is another NASA. This is actually the 2017 eclipse, and showing you the band of darkness and showing you the shadow of the moon crossing from Oregon down, heading towards Kentucky. And you can see how narrow a band it is. So that band, totality is in the center, and then everything outside that is partial. And you see it's still continuing over the ocean. But what's going to happen is that once it hits sunset, it's gone. So frequently we have eclipses that we will see coming on at sunrise, eclipses that come on at sunset, and so forth. We actually did have a partial solar eclipse in Dayton. Do you remember this a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
And I took a picture. Actually, I had a picture published in Dayton, and my picture was a picture of the rising sun in eclipse from the Englewood Dam. So, but I mean, so it came up in eclipse, but it was gone in like 15 minutes. But it's that type of thing. So, again, the moon, the umbra is total solar eclipse. The penumbra is where we have the partial phases. And then when you have an annular eclipse, there's your question. Here's an annular eclipse. That's because the shadow is ending up in the atmosphere or above the atmosphere. And so now what we have is we have light coming in around it. And so we see the moon and then the sun around it. Here, the moon is exactly the size of the sun relatively in the sky, which is a half degree. Or it's bigger than the sun in the sky, which gives you a longer eclipse. Here, the moon is further out because of the way the moon's orbit goes. Here it's further out, so you get a ring of fire around it. And here, what we had in 1994, and again in a couple of years ago in Dayton, were the partial eclipses because we were outside the area of totality. Any of you been in a total solar eclipse besides? Yeah. Okay, so we have lots of people. Yeah, they're there. Okay, so all of you guys who've been in it when it's not been cloudy, know it's really interesting as it comes closer and closer to the eclipse. First, it's, the sun's got a little piece taken out of it. And then as it gets to be about 70 or 80%, you say, it's getting a little bit cold now, And then all this weird stuff starts happening. First of all, you put your hand out like this, and suddenly you see all these weird crescent-shaped shadows because all the little ridges between your fingers are acting like pinhole cameras. And so you're focusing the sun's rays on there. And this is from the eclipse I went to in Tennessee, if we're right. And that was just a cutout with lots of holes, which says 8/21/17 eclipse. And each of those, you can see the crescent sun. So that's about 1/3 of the way through, each being projected above each of the holes. And you can use a calendar to do this as well. Yeah. And on the left, that's my wife's fingernail. Oh, but it is. And she was sitting reading a book, and those are crescent suns that are shining through leaves on a tree in Portland, Tennessee. In the center here are shadow bands. As you get really close to the eclipse, and there's very little light, the little perturbations in the atmosphere, little weather things, will cause the light to shimmer. And so you'll see it shimmering. If you stand on a hill and you look out towards where the eclipse is coming from, usually, obviously to the west, you can see the eclipse coming to you as a black line approaching you. And then also, for some reason, shadows around people are very, very crisp. Because you don't have this big diffuse sun, you have a tiny point of light. And so the shadows are very, very crisp.
That shadow is blue.
Well, don't ask me.
Oh, it's because the sky is blue.
Yes. So we've now come up to the point that you get the eclipse, and the sun has been almost completely eclipsed, covered by the moon. And as you know from the pictures we've seen from the Apollo projects, the moon is not a smooth ball. It's not even a golf ball with little divots. It's got lots of craters and mountains. And so as the moon covers the sun, the last vestiges that you see are what are called Bailey's beads, named after Francis Bailey. And that's the last bits of sun coming through the valleys on the moon between the mountains. And that's the last second or two before totality. At the same time, the last gasp is what's called the diamond ring, and that's the last valley, the last mountain on the moon that's blocking the sun. And it's after that that you get to totality. And this again was mine from 2017. Whoops. And what you will see is you will see the corona surrounding the sun. The corona is the very hot gases that are outside the sun. And it won't look quite like this because this was a processed picture, but the sun's magnetic field causes it to go in all those directions. And so this probably is out to here, but I didn't take good enough pictures to do that. But the corona can really move out very, very far, but it gets fainter and fainter. So if you want to take pictures of it, you need to take differing exposures of it and then combine them into a composite picture. Again, you will see the prominences erupting off the edge of the sun. They should be much more prominent this time. They should be easy to see.
Is that called the solar ejection?
The prominences, no, not really. Prominences are, they're little eruptions off of the edge of the sun. But when you get to what's called a coronal mass ejection, it's a big blowout. I mean, these are little tiny things, but these are big blowouts. And there have been pictures of those published.
Would those be visible to the naked eye?
Yes,
Mhm.
They should be. For those of you who've seen eclipses, do you remember seeing the prominences, the little red dots inside?
Oh, yeah.
Well, this time, yeah.
Yeah, see Cheryl.
This time, what you have to be is aware of what you're looking for, right? And so just look for it very carefully, and you'll see a little red dot. It's, yeah, and it's, if you look at the, up here, you can see it's very white, and so it's a little bit fainter than that, so just look and be aware.
Can you take the glasses away
Yes,
at this moment?
absolutely. I mean,
If you don't take the glasses away, can you still see this phenomenon?
no, no.
Can you take a picture with a regular camera during the moment that it is posed?
Absolutely.
Not,
But not before. No. No.
The what?
Okay. Well, I didn't make this into a camera talk, but we'll talk about that a little bit. And I took a picture today of the sun, and I want to show you what I did, to just give people some perspective on what you should expect to see in the partial phases, and then what you should do at total if you want to do it. Yeah, and then the other thing that many of you remember is at totality, and you look around, it's sunset everywhere. And the birds go crazy, meaning they either get chirpy or they become very quiet. The insects become very quiet. The air is still. I mean, if it's clear outside, just very little wind, it's just very quiet, and the temperature can drop 15 degrees. So it's going to be April 8th. It can get chilly, so don't go out there in a tank top. Just bring your coat with you because it's cold. Now, on the left side is a colander being used as a multiple pinhole camera. And so you see with the colander, you see all the crescent suns, and that's similar to the picture I showed you from when we were in Tennessee. But there's other things you can do, and what this is just a box that you got out of the garbage, and you cut a wedge in one side, and you put some aluminum foil over it, and you put a hole into it. And the other side is open, and what you do is you put it over your shoulder, excuse me, like this, and you're looking through the hole, and the sun is coming through the pinhole, and it's projecting on the back wall of the box. And so you get a very nice image of the sun there. And during the partial phases, man, you're going to see the shape no matter what you do. You'll see it in the shadows on the ground. You'll see it through the pinhole camera. You'll see it between your fingers. There's lots of ways of doing it. And this is used here and here and over here. You will not see a thing if you try. I saw that you have some eclipse glasses with you. Do not look at the sun before it's in totality with your naked eyes, because even though the light looks light, I'll show you a picture in a little bit. You can get very, very bad burns in your eyes, which can be permanent. If not total blindness, partial blindness. We take it very seriously. Most of the eclipse glasses that we've seen recently, they have and I'll show you the data about it. There's an ISO rating that certifies them as being able to look at the sun. And we got the Dayton Metro Libraries gave out a bunch, and I got those, and I got some from our club also the other day, and I went out yesterday and looked at the sun through them, and yes, they work. At least I'm not blind right now, so that's a good sign that they worked. The sun did seem a little bit bright. Now, just to let you know that this talk is up to date, this was in today's New York Times. And it was eclipses injured their eyes and the world never looked the same. And they're showing you appropriate eclipse glasses unless they're bogus. So make sure you get them from a reliable source. And what this is showing you on the right side, there are at least two physicians back there in the room, that's a retinal burn. That's the crescent sun. Yeah. The lady looked at, and that's permanent. So she has a black cutout in her vision for the rest of her life. Now the fovea is away from it, so it's a little bit off to the side, so she probably can see central vision, but over here it's cut out. And there's other ones here too. So in this article in the Times, they mentioned that some people had vision come back within 7 months or so, but some people it's been years and it's never come back. So just be careful when you're looking. Try not to look at the sun. It's not good.
I still have the glasses from whenever it was.
Yes, they should still be good.
They should.
They should still be good. There's, no- I don't, unless you left them out in the sun. You left them out in the sun where they got bleached or something, but they should be fine. Okay. I couldn't find mine from 17, so I had to get new ones. Okay, so. Those are the types of eclipse glasses we're seeing, and they work quite well. I have one new one on order, and I have another one I have. And these are special solar filters, which you put at the front of your camera, not at the eyepiece. Because if it's at the eyepiece, the sun gets focused and focuses on your glass and will break it very nicely or heat it up a lot. You put it at the front.
You're using your phone.
There are, I saw on Amazon today, there are solar filters that are available for phones as well.
Can you just use the eclipse glasses?
You know, there's two answers to that. The first answer is yes, and the second is the optical quality of eclipse glasses stinks. And so it might not give you a very good picture. I mean, if you look at their film, but there are lots of any glass solar filter. The ones for the iPhone, for instance, are made to fit over it. Okay, the ones that I'm getting, I have a 77 millimeter which fits over one of my cameras. I have a 67 millimeter that fits over another one of the cameras. But these are really, that is 100,000 drop in light intensity, 16.6 stops. Actually, one of mine is 16.6, one of mine is 20 stops. You know, you really can't, if you look at them in this room, you'll see nothing. If you look at an incandescent, you see we don't have any incandescent bulbs here. If we had an incandescent bulb, you might see the filament glowing through one of them, and that's all you would see. So these are really effective, but only during the partial phases. Once you get the totality, you have to pull it off.
What about a video camera?
Same thing.
You have to have something.
Absolutely. You cannot run the video camera fast enough or stop it down enough to block out all the light. You must have a filter of some sort on it.
And where would you get for a video camera?
They're everything made at the edge of the video camera. I mean, you know, it's a 30 millimeter, 45, whatever it is, you can get that. It's all available.
Another thing you can use is a welding glass.
Yes.
If you go to a welding shop, the last time I got that.
Yeah.
Today I put on my iPhone, cover that thing, took a picture of the sun.
And it worked fine. The sun was very, very small, but it worked fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's, again, those things come about this size.
Yeah. So it depends on how fit. Look, if you want something you just want to put in front of the lens, welding glasses are fine, or lots of the filters that are out there are fine. I think optically, I object to the eclipse glasses, which I'm going to use anyway, but not for photography. Just depends what you want. Depends on how good your picture is going to be. Now with the newer iPhones, you can multiply it like tenfold. So you might be able to see the sun more than just a tiny dot like my Instamatic picture from 1970. But you really want a bigger camera, and I'll show you some stuff later.
Could you use your pinhole aluminum foil technique and take a picture up close of the back of your cardboard box? The sun's over your shoulder.
Absolutely.
And you can have a big picture then.
Yeah. That's fine. And for the partial phases.
I am.
You cannot do that.
Understand it. I don't understand half of.
Oh. Are you saying when it's totality, you don't have to have your glasses on?
Absolutely not. If you keep your glasses on during totality, you will miss it.
Scene 6 with the.
But it's only 2
Wait,
minutes.
what's he
You
saying?
can't take them off for long.
You have to keep them
You
on.
know, like, okay, so in Yellow Springs, Ohio, it's 2 minutes and 8 seconds. So when you see the diamond ring,
Between the.
that is the harbinger of totality. You can take them off that instant.
But you have to put them on it.
And then you'll know, you can set a timer on your watch or whatever, but you know it's 2 minutes. But then at the end of totality, you'll see the beginning of the diamond ring, and then you turn away from the sun or put the glasses back on. But it's not as if it's gonna go from 0 to 100% blind you in 1 second. You'll know. You'll see the diamond ring, and then you'll know that's the end of it.
It'll be a warning.
It's the harbinger and then the exit warning. Absolutely. And that's just talking about the boxes, and you can have binoculars, but they need special lenses on them. These are for telescopes, and this is what your question was. Use protection at all times until full totality, and then lower the eclipse glasses and enjoy 1 minute and 50, well, depends, this was somewhere else, 1 minute and 58 seconds, that was down in Middletown. Put them back in at the first hint of Bailey speeds. So that's, you'll know when it goes in, well, totality you'll know because suddenly you won't be able to see anything. You take your glasses off and you'll see the diamond ring and you'll know that's the end of totality, put the glasses back on. You know, most people don't stay for the entire exit, you know, it's leading up to the big event. And then once it's over, you know, we left about 2 hours after totality was over when we got to Tennessee. Most of the solar glasses I've seen have appeared to be real, and they've got an ISO rating. In the last eclipse, especially around COVID, the Chinese market flooded US with lots of glasses. Some of them weren't quite as good. So, you know, I think you need to look, and if you buy something, just take a look quickly, see if it looks like it's blocked out most of the sun, then you should be okay. And this is what Dr. Fan said, welding goggles rated 14 or higher can be used for direct viewing. Okay, now this is the eclipse that we're going to have here in, well, we're going to have it here no matter what. We may not see it. We're going to have it here no matter what. And this one is going to, remember, they started pretty much sunrise and then sunset. And so it's starting out over the Pacific Ocean. And it's coming up to Mexico, crossing over southwest Texas, over the Dallas area, Missouri, Arkansas, and then Indiana, Ohio, New York, etc. And then finally exiting over, that looks like New Brunswick. And then finally, it ends over the North Atlantic Ocean, south of Iceland. Interestingly, if you want to have the longest eclipse experience, so I saw a thing that Delta is offering eclipse flights.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what it is it's taking off in Texas and flying up the path of the eclipse. And
So
so,
the plane that we have to be on.
well, no, yeah, I thought about that too, gee, what's the wrong side of the plane? Well, it may be that they say seatbelts are off, and they may allow people to switch around, because if you think about it, you don't have 4 minutes of totality. You probably have 40 minutes of totality, because the eclipse is moving at roughly 1,000 miles an hour. And so the plane's moving 500 miles an hour, so it's going to really increase the amount of time that you're under the shadow. So they're going to be tracking the shadow, going at about half the speed of the shadow, but they'll still give them a prolonged eclipse. So they'll probably see it for a lot of minutes. Now, I had not looked into it. I've guessed coming in, but it's an interesting thing. But again, you're right. It's still, I'm gonna let my,
There it is.
that's back, okay. Yeah, it's eclipse, right. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. That's been done before, but you know, I'm sure it's an interesting price for do you know what the price was?
No, I don't.
I
I didn't go on it.
I didn't get to it.
You know how the birds are all gonna go crazy if they're.
Yes, well, in the plane, hopefully not in the plane. Don't want in the plane.
Yeah.
We've had planes land in the Hudson River with birds. So we don't do that. The birds will be on the ground. This is showing you when it's occurring over northeastern Mexico, 12:25 Central Time. Dallas, 1:45 Central Time. There's Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Indianapolis, 3:10. And this is Cleveland, is 3:15 at Eastern Time. So the center of the shadow is moving from Indianapolis to Cleveland in 5 minutes. So you can figure out speed of that, which means that our area is going to be around, I'd say 3:12. And that's totality, not when it starts. It starts almost 2 hours before that.
What about farm animals? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, what I was told by a friend of mine is that he was on a farm when there was an eclipse, and it's getting really dark, and finally the sun goes out, and the cows are moving to the barn. This is serious. This is very serious. And then suddenly the sun came out again, and the cows looked up, and turned around, and walked back out into the field. So yeah, animals don't know what's going on, and so they do what they naturally do.
I saw that in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, they do these things, and the birds will roost, and they'll,
Turtles go back in the water.
and then they get faked out and have to come out again.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna show you several of this, but here's the central line. The central line just means that's where the moon and the sun were best matched. The moon is exactly in the center of the sun from the standpoint of our perspective, and you get the longest totality. And so again, this is south of Lima, there's Sydney. This is almost 4 minutes, or about 4 minutes of totality. Columbus, downtown, you're out of luck. However, if you live in the northern suburbs, you'll get a little bit. You'll get a minute and a half or so. Here's our area. We're Yellow Springs, we're right here. So we're better than Columbus is getting, but not quite as good as further over. So around here, Richmond is pretty good. It's near the central line. Sydney is really good. And then Lorain, Ohio. My son-in-law lives in that area, and he told me that, are we coming up to Lorain? Because they're putting down that they're the best place in the country to come see the eclipse. Well, I don't know about that. We can talk about class, but look, Sandusky's pretty good. Cleveland's really good. Our daughter lives around here, so she's gonna get, if it's clear, they'll get an amazing amount of duration of eclipse. But again, above the northern limit of eclipse is partial. Below the southern limit is partial. And as you get towards the central line, it increases the amount of time that you're under that full eclipse. That's what that means. This is showing you, this is from Ohio Oracle Eclipse website that the state put out. Central line totality, you can see the counties that it's in: Shelby, Hardin, Wyandotte, Seneca, etc. Toledo is really almost out of the eclipse. And Mansfield is pretty good. And you can see Dayton there is full totality. Mansfield full totality, Cleveland full totality. That's the strip. So it's going from southwest to northeast. And this also from the GreatAmericanEclipse.com website gives you precise durations. So here's 3 minutes. Over Troy, it's 3 minutes and 40 seconds. And then when you get towards the center, it's about 3 minutes and 55 seconds is the longest the totality will be in Ohio. Okay, so we're gonna go, if we live in Englewood, 3 minutes 15. We may go towards Richmond, which is a little bit better because my friend has a farm and it'll be pretty unobstructed. But as you move towards totality, it's better. So in Yellow Springs, it'll be okay. If you move a little bit further to the northwest, be a little bit better. I mean, it's a little longer, not better. Same thing. Well, now there is a site. This is Exjubier, free French, .free-fr. It's an interactive map, and you can put your mouse cursor anywhere on the map of mouse and click it, and it will tell you when the start of your partial eclipse is, when the start of the total eclipse is, when is maximum, when is the end of partial, and it'll give you a little graphic of what it looks like. So it's kind of nice because then you can play around. And this was done by one of my colleagues, by Steve Hillebrand, and he was giving a talk in Middletown. So in Middletown, it was about 2 minutes and 6 seconds of eclipse. Just about 2 minutes of eclipse. And so if we did it up here, I said 2 minutes and 8 seconds, Englewood 3 minutes and 15, and Sydney Lima pushing towards 4 minutes. So it's a little bit more.
What's my name of the website? What website?
Okay, this is, okay, XJUBIER, XJUBIER, free.fr as in France.
G-U-B what?
XJUBIER.
X. Can you spell that again?
I'll try to get and share it.
Can you spell one more time, Jack?
X is in X-ray, J is in Jonathan, U is in underdog, B is in boy, I is in Isaac, E is in Edward, R is in Romeo, XJUBIER. .free, F-R-E, .friends.
X.
I-E-R .free, the word free, .fr.
Free, like R-E-E, yeah.
No, free, yeah, free as in free and clear.
Okay.
.fr for France. It's a French site, but it's in English. And he has all this information. Now, safety, we talked about a little bit. This was just a bunch of people looking at it, and you can see they're all being pretty good. They're using their eclipse glasses. The guy in the blue shirt is being the safest because he has his back turned to the sun. He has no chance of blindness. But I think most of us are like that, and I think the very first picture I showed you of my wife and other people at the eclipse in Tennessee, they're all looking up, they all have their glasses on. Now, the one problem we get into are clouds, and a lot of people are driving all over the place. So if you look at the statistics, the chance of it being cloud-free in the Dayton area on April 8th, given 20 plus years of data, is 62% of it not being cloud-free. Against, right? Then you look at Texas. Oh, let's go to Texas. Well, you look at Dallas, it's like 55%. So it's not a lot of improvement going down there, unless you want to go down to Southwest Texas or into Mexico. Once you start getting to the deserts of Mexico, it goes way, way up. So if you really want to fly anywhere, go to Mazatlan. Go to the west coast of Mexico. That'll be pretty good. Everywhere else, there's no guarantee. Now, one place I say don't go is please don't go to New Hampshire. The chance of New Hampshire being clouded over is like 90% at that time. So I do know people in New Hampshire are going to Texas because they know it's safer to do that.
That doesn't mean it's completely cloudy.
No,
Yeah.
5 chance of clouds.
Yeah. And there is a phenomenon that the shadow reaches you. Many times it does clear.
Yes,
Happened at Eddington in 1919.
yes. And when we were in Portland, Tennessee in 2017, the clouds were building up. It was a summer's day. And then suddenly, as it got closer to the eclipse, the clouds started evaporating because that was convective heating and moisture from the ground. As it got cooler, the clouds went away and it was totally clear at the time of the eclipse. So we can see that too. So if it's just cumulus clouds, good chance they'll go away. If it's high, horrible clouds, no, that won't happen. Too much to read here, but I just showed you all the cities. Rochester gets 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Buffalo, 3 minutes 45. Toledo, 1 minute 54. My brother lives in Ann Arbor, and he's a physician. He's on service. He said he can't get away, so he will not see it. He said we're 95%. I said, yeah, well, whatever. Wapakoneta, Neil Armstrong Museum, appropriately 3 minutes and 55 seconds of totality. So that's cool. Indianapolis is 3 minutes and 46 seconds. So that's really good. So a lot of places around here with considerable amounts of totality that you can see it. This is mostly from Steve. Beware of road closures, beware of traffic. What some people have experienced, I have not, is that gas stations have run out of gas because there's so many people. Places where you get food have run out of food because there's so many people. So all this stuff can happen. Medical service, I don't know. I don't think we're going to have to worry about getting dehydrated in April 8th, but in the middle of the summer, it's definitely a problem. And sun exposure, well, yeah, we always say use sunscreen if at all possible. And I mentioned the temperature drop.
And the bathroom.
Oh yeah, bathrooms, right. Bathrooms, right. Especially for persons who aren't usually capable of just finding a convenient tree and standing behind it. For those persons, it is much more difficult, right? So the bathrooms can be overloaded. Now, I mentioned that I was going to show you the realities. This picture was taken today from my backyard with my Canon camera and my solar filter, which was like the one you saw, 10,000. Okay, and so on the left side, this entire big black box is the entire frame. And I want you to see how relatively small the sun seems in that frame. This is with an almost 600 millimeter camera on a 600 millimeter lens on a full frame camera. So even on a good telephoto lens, the sun is going to appear pretty small. If you have what's called a crop sensor camera, it'll probably be about 50% bigger. Over here, though, you're seeing that when I cropped it and expanded it, you can still see, look at all the nice sunspots I found today using my camera and my solar filter. So you should be able to get pictures like this with any DSLR or equivalent that you can get a reasonable focal length to shoot the sun. The other thing I'd warn you about, and not really warning as a photographer, is that The amount of light changes dramatically from the beginning when you're like, F20, meaning really step down camera lens or high shutter speed. As you get to that final rim of sun, you're going to be changing completely. And when you get to totality, it's totally different. And there's lots of resources on the web about how to set your camera up to do this. If you are going to take pictures of the partial phases, I would say tomorrow's a good day to get started. Today was a good day to get started. Play with your filter, play with your camera, play with getting it. If you want to practice on the full moon. Get that and use manual focus. You take a piece of tape, once you're in focus, tape it down. That's what you want. You don't need an autofocus. You want the crispest picture of the sun that you can get, and the moon is exactly the right size to know what you. That'll also tell you how big the sun's going to appear in your camera. Now, when we do have totality, you'll have that in the center, it'll be black, but you'll have the corona probably out this far in both directions. So having a super telephoto lens, like a 10,000 millimeter lens or something like that, sure, this one will look good. You'll miss the entire corona because it spreads out from the sun. And I think that's the most dramatic thing. But I think you'll see that beautiful halo around the sun. And the red prominence is coming off the sides. That's what you need. And that was handheld. I did not use a tracker. I did not use a tripod. I just pointed in the sun, took a picture. That's it. And that was that picture. This is just for fun. I mean, okay, there are many eclipses coming up. For those of we in the senior center know that we will not see most of these eclipses. This one actually is in a couple of years, and it's probably pretty good. It's coming across Morocco and Northern Africa, where I think the chance of not having clouds is good. There's one in a couple of years coming across Spain. But insofar as North America, we've got nothing more coming. For those who'd like to travel to Australia, there's one coming up in Australia. And that will be, when it goes over Alice Springs, it'll probably be clear. And that's really density.
When
And-
is the one?
Australia, I don't know, do you know what the Australian is? I don't recall. I mean, I don't know.
We can look it up though.
Huh?
It's still gonna happen whether you know or not.
That's correct. I can look it up. There's lots of sites to look it up. Two of us here are from Miami Valley Astronomical Society. That's our local astronomy club. And we have meetings every month. And actually we have stargazes at John Bryant, just down the street, every month. And on our website, it's listed the dates that occurs. Usually it's close to the new moon, because when there's a new moon, you can see stars. When it's a full moon, you see a nice full moon, but you don't see very many stars. So we do that. And we have meetings once a month at the VFW post, because it's easy. And it's on various topics, and it's open to the public. You don't need to be a member. So,
Do you put it in the Yellow Springs News?
no, it's not in the Yellow Springs News. We have a Facebook page. We have a web page. I mean, but not in the Yellow Springs News.
Okay.
And this is the last thing which I found. A prayer for sunshine during outdoor adventure. The great outdoors surrounded by the wonders of nature. We come before you with a sense of wonder and reverence as we embark on our adventurous journey. We pray for your grace to shine upon us. Bless our path with clear skies. Yes, clear skies. Gentle breezes and the warmth of the sun's embrace. May our outdoor expedition be safe, joyful, and bathed in the golden light of the eclipse. We take care of protection and guidance. And I think that's all I have here. And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Please.
When you say DSLR,
Digital single lens reflex.
right, you don't need a cell phone or a smartphone.
You know, I think Dr. Fan is right behind you. Use your smartphone today with welding glass. Okay, and I know that on the iPhone, my iPhone, whatever it is, has 3 lenses. And the large one is a telephoto lens. And you can enlarge it even more. So you probably can get a reasonable sized picture of the sun. You probably can, with the proper exposure, you can get the corona. But I warn you, do not use automatic anything from any phone like this, because it'll blow it. Because it can measure all the light, the corona and the darkness, and either overexpose it or underexpose it. There are ways of setting cell phones for manual exposure, but I don't do that a lot, so I can't speak to that. But it can be done. There's lots of resources.
Is there a way to project the sun through binoculars?
No, don't do that. Yeah. It's also a way of causing small fires. We did that in the Boy Scouts. Actually, a friend of mine in Richmond wanted to do that, to show that, but I think a pinhole camera is a bit better. Or if you use a lens, and he's projected really far away, so it's diffuse, and if it's a tiny point, it's gonna cause a fire. So just be careful.
Is there a different crowd? But you didn't mention a couple of crowd things that I expected might be of danger. One is that there might be so much traffic that those who have a broken bone or a car accident or a cardiac event can't get EMS to them because the streets are crowded.
Actually, one of the lines in one of the slides did mention medical. I just didn't stress that, but you're completely correct.
And the other thing was, it might be hard to contact police or fire because there's so many people busy on their cell phone trying to get out of.
You're absolutely correct.
They overwhelm a cell phone.
Yes, our son was in New York City on 9/11, and let me tell you, we couldn't get in touch with him. I mean, it was, the network was overloaded. That could happen.
So it might be better to 3 days before collect a few resources because you might be stuck with whatever the problem is.
Absolutely. Depends where you're going. Okay, thank you much. Oh, one more.
Sorry. Seeing planets in the sky and wondering which ones they are, can you recommend the best app for looking up planets?
If you ever see Venus.
Oh, forgot to mention something. There is a comet out right now. It's called 12P slash, Hans Bennett, yeah. There's a comet right now. It's gonna be 6 degrees away from the sun.
Can you
6 degrees,
some?
huh?
Can you use your microphone, please?
Yep. There is presently a comet that's visible in the western sky. And my telescope at home is on automation right now. It will start taking pictures in 30 minutes, from 8:30 to 9:30 after an automatic telescope. And it's really pretty. It's got a green head and nice long tail. If it's bright enough during the eclipse and you look at the sun, you look off just to the upper left, you may see a green ball with a tail. So you might be able to see a comet at the same time. You will see several planets near there. You'll probably see Venus and Mars near the sun. Venus and Mercury near the sun at the same time. Jupiter is probably going to be up there too, because Jupiter is in that area. So you'll be able to see lots of things. Now, the question was, what apps? Okay. There are lots of apps that are free for astronomy. I'm looking at my phone. There's one, this is an iPhone, Skyview, Night Sky. Just look at astronomy apps on your app store and you will find it. And you'll find lots of them. And many of these, you use the camera and you point to the sky and it overlaps what you're seeing with the map and will tell you what's going on. It'll tell you where you are.
These that we might see the comet.
Yes.
I think if I had to imagine doing that, I would say, okay, it's a total eclipse. You're in that two-minute interval, and I take the special glasses off during that moment. Otherwise, I would imagine it's too dark to see.
Yeah. I will actually, let's see if I can find a picture of this comet. You have Wi-Fi here?
Yes, you'd have to sign in.
No kidding. Oh, yes, right.
I mean, like,
No, I think maybe okay.
Use your phone hotspot.
Happen to have a picture of the comet? I have a picture of
It's called airdropping to your, airdropping can be very useful.
Or you just airdropping a picture that you have on there?
I'm just dropping a picture I just stole.
Okay, okay.
Okay, that's it. That's 12P Ponds Brooks, okay? That is in the western sky right now. It should still be visible for a couple of weeks. That is actually very similar to the pictures I'm getting from my backyard neighborhood. Now, this is not one like the ones you've seen here the last 20 years, hail blob and so forth, which were really bright. This is a bit fainter, but once you have an eclipse, this may be visible. And again, it's gonna be about this far from the sun in the sky. So you don't have to suddenly stop looking at the sun. You're gonna be looking at the sun and you say, oh, look at that over there. And a lot of people say, while you're looking at the sun, notice you're seeing all these stars and all these planets, and just be aware of what you're seeing. That's all. But this is gonna be up there too. So pretty close.
Is your telescope computerized? So you
Yes,
just have
yes,
it?
Yes. Yeah, oh, well, yeah, we were just chatting before that we started that. When I started doing astrophotography pretty seriously a couple of years ago, it would be freezing my bum off through the night, turning it off so it wouldn't crash into something. Now I have an automated thing where I can automatically focus, automatically point at whatever I want, automatically track everything, and do it all from my iPad in my house while watching TV. It's really sweet, except on my way here, I was thinking my telescope was set to do all this stuff, and I had the lens cap on. So my wife is also a young person, and she just had a new knee a couple of weeks ago. I said to her, honey, can you get in the backyard and just take a yardstick and knock off the lens cap? And she wasn't happy, but she did it for me. And she didn't fall. So that's a good thing. So it's going to be automated to do some stuff later this evening. It's really nice that way. There are a lot of, for those of you who are interested in astronomy and taking pictures, there are a lot of relatively cheap, couple $100, automated telescopes. One of them is called a C-Star, made by the company ZWO, and it's $499. And actually, a lot of our members have now got it, not me. In fact, one of our members has bought two because he wants to track two things at once. But you'll be able to watch the pictures develop on your phone or iPad or Google tablet, or develop the pictures and print them and do whatever you want with them, which is really nice. The way I have my telescope set up is mostly for photography, but I have another telescope. I can just look through the lens and just marvel at what I see. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know. Okay. My voice is cracked too badly. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Enjoyed it.